It's good, but how are you doing? How'd the meeting go with your boss?
You know what? All things considered, pretty well.
All things considered?
Well, you know what? I came to the realization that just getting things out in the open today doesn't tie everything up in a cute little bow. There's still lots to do, decisions to be made, and this disease to live with. But don't get me wrong. I mean, Dave was great. He's actually going to send Jeff with me to Vegas to help set up the exhibit.
So I will contact the union and make sure we can get in at 7 in the morning, bright and early.
Great. I will definitely be there by 9. That's plenty of time to meet with the client.
Good. I want you to have some good quality time with the client. When you get back, we'll get you started on your next project.
Great. Oh, and then we talked about the stairs situation.
You know, Claire, when we were moving into this building, the architect said an elevator just wasn't feasible. I am so glad that this office swap has worked out for you.
And we made arrangements to swap offices with the gal on the first floor.
Looks like we're getting closer here, huh?
Right, we're gonna be roommates.
I know, and everything looks great. I'm so excited.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work well.
We should have the phones transferred early this week,
And we talked about making arrangements for me to work from home. So I've got these catalogs to go through just to figure out what I need and how much it'll cost. I'm not quite sure how we'll pay for it yet, but I know that we'll figure something out.
Well, I'd say things are working out pretty good for you.
For now, but you just never know what can happen with this disease or when. And the decision for me to keep working, I mean, I'm gonna have to revisit that for years.
The choice to continue to work or not depends upon many factors that you'll have to consider for yourself. One, how are you able to perform on your job? Are your symptoms impacting your ability to do well and to complete all of your required assignments and to excel on the job?
People tend to only look to keeping their jobs when there is an emergency. They suddenly have an exacerbation and they can't continue to work, and it's a real problem, and then they wonder what to do.
Communication with the important people in your life, communication with employers and coworkers, not necessarily about your multiple sclerosis, but about your job performance and ways to enhance it, and communication with your healthcare provider, keeping yourself as informed as you possibly can be about how your MS affects you first of all, and then how that might play out in your ability to do your job.
I think employers tend to understand the illness better. It's no longer a frightening disease for most employers. I think they have information. It's not as frightening for the patients anymore. I think that the disease-modifying therapies has had something to do with this, but I think education probably has had an even more important role.
As a rehabilitation counselor and a rehabilitation counselor educator, my bias is certainly in favor of staying employed. That's not to say that for some people the choice to disengage from the workforce isn't a good one. We really want people to be making that decision, though, on their own. People with MS who continue working are happier, healthier. They have greater social capital, meaning they have a wider network of friends and associates, and they're generally more satisfied with their lives than people who stop working. So our bias initially when we talk with folks is to get them to continue in employment as long as they can.
People have to realize that MS is a disease that has different aspects. There are good days, good weeks, bad weeks, and the important thing with an employer is to be understanding about that. If you have an employee that's very talented in what they're doing, then you have to be willing to be flexible. To me, I don't look at it as anything different than if I have an employee who has a young child or a sick parent at home. People have a life to live, and as much as some people think otherwise, your job is one aspect of your life. It's not your life.
Well, I know for me, I find it difficult to balance my work with my personal life, but you've got this MS thing that's adding a whole new layer of stuff that you have to deal with every day. I can't imagine how you deal with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I look at it like I have two choices. I can either sit around at home and mope and complain and say, woe is me, and as far as I'm concerned, I mean, that's not even a choice. Or I could learn and do as much as I possibly can to deal with and manage this disease. I've been reading a lot of the stuff that you gave me from last time. And while there's no silver bullet cure yet, there are a number of approaches that I can take. And some are medications and therapies, while others are things such as my attitude, organization, and planning, both at home and at work.
During the relapsing remitting phase of the illness, we now have treatments which are reasonably effective in reducing the number of acute attacks. So we have several disease-modifying therapies, a couple of interferons, a couple of other medications, all of which have been shown to reduce the number of acute attacks. We also have a number of symptomatic therapies. So we have some therapies that can be used for fatigue, which are at least partially effective and can help in that symptom. We have treatments for spasticity or muscle tightness, which can also help with disability in the later stages of the disease. Some individuals will have some difficulties with bladder frequency and the need to urinate frequency, which can also cause some difficulties at work and some need for accommodation, but we have medications that can often help to control that as well. So today, between our disease-modifying therapies and our symptomatic therapies, we're in a much better position to help individuals continue working.
I like the fact that there is something I can do to take control back over some part of my life. And if I never ever thought that I would get used to giving myself a shot. I choose to have a life not just at work, and so therefore that means that I need to choose where I spend my energy. I love to cook, so therefore it was something I wanted to be made comfortable. My kitchen has been totally made into a sit-down kitchen so that you can sit in a bar stool and you can be at the sink on one side and the microwave right there. Dinner can be made without moving once I put everything out. I choose to scuba dive, and so it is where I focus much of my energy. Twice a year I leave the country and I take good trips and go elsewhere, and to me scuba diving forces me to keep in shape. I will not dive if I'm going to put my dive partners at risk, which means that all year long I have to stay in shape for diving.
It started with, I found myself tripping, and I used to wear really cute shoes. And I moved away from heels to flats. And then I was tripping on the flats. I was finding it was hard to hold those little skinny shoes on. And so I had to get shoes that had straps on them. And then I had to move to a foot brace when I really started to fall more often. And my neurologist said, I think we need to do a brace. So that meant I had to move into Oxford shoes. And to be honest, that was one of the hardest things for me. But, you know, I wear slacks all the time, so most people don't notice. It's probably, again, like telling people about it, it's more of a problem for me than it is for other people. They don't notice. Let's go. I can't do all of the work around the house that I used to do and still have time to do the fun stuff, like play with my granddaughter.
Where's the little girl? Can you find her?
So we've had the luxury of being able to hire someone to come in she only comes every 3 weeks, but that's enough, and keeps the Board of Health from coming in. Okay.
In order to maintain balance in my life, because I have a multitude of tasks for which I'm responsible as a mother, as a wife, and as a counselor, you know, in a professional setting, I need to remember to focus on the task that I'm trying to accomplish at any given moment and not let the other multitude of tasks that I'm responsible for intrude on what I'm doing at the moment. MS is a disease that we can manage.
I would like to run, but I can't.
You'll do the same things. You'll just do them differently.
Well, I'd say, all things considered, things are working out.
For now. But I do realize that as my symptoms change, so will my work situation. And I'll constantly be reevaluating. But I do know that I need to take control of my decisions regarding not only my career, but my life.
I think if an individual with MS wishes to continue employment, probably the most important thing for them to do is to realistically assess their ability to work and realistically assess the type of job they're in.
And if there becomes an occasion where you feel like you cannot sustain that for very much longer, then you have to look at a couple of different options. One, can you transfer to a different position that may be less taxing for you within the same company? Two, do you want to go to a part-time status so you're not having to be on the job all the time but you're still able to gain some income? Or three, do you want to start moving forward to take advantage of your long-term disability benefits if you foresee that you're not going to be able to sustain full-time employment for much longer?
Everyone changes jobs. Everyone is going to get older, hopefully, and everybody is going to have problems that come with changing interests, changing health, or just getting to the point where you're promoted to the point where you're no longer benefiting from that company.
When I was diagnosed with MS, I didn't fully understand what MS was all about. It took me a while to figure out what exactly it was. And at that point, I started to think, you know what, this could affect my long-term outlook in terms of my future employment. And at that point, I started to think, at the time, I wasn't that bad off, so I could continue working in the field I was working in. And then I thought, you know what, I don't think I'll always be able to run around. I was in sales at the time, and be a salesman, because you have to be very active. So I started to question what I needed to do at that point, which is very difficult when you're 25 years old and you don't know what you want to do anyhow. We're not talking about, .com stocks here, but it comes to a certain point in time where you say, you know what, this is what I need to do. And thank goodness that this type of career suited me very well to having a disease like I have, because I can be immobile and still do my job. These are great long-term funds, but as I told her, you could have a year or two of bad performance.
I try to keep a work-life balance as much as possible. I spend a lot of time with my husband. We are both musicians, so we love to play and write and record music. Even though it's been 2 years, we still feel like newlyweds.
Absolutely everything I need to believe, I believe.
When I was having problems with my cognitive dysfunction, it got to me. It hurt me to know that I wasn't as smart as I was, or I wasn't as capable as I used to be. But instead of just sort of wallowing in that or accepting it and maybe quitting my job and taking something a little less rigorous, I went to a neuropsychologist who evaluated me and really helped me to put together a plan to move forward, and spoke to my employer about it. Had I not done any of that, I probably would not have been able to keep my job, would not have been able to move forward in my career. And it really just has to do with taking personal responsibility for where your disease is and what you can do about it.
Should we go to the baby playground or the big kids playground? I decided to work part-time because of the children and wanting to be here with them at least part of the time.
We have to go into that shade, because MS will foul mommy up and make her very, very tired, and it will be hard to walk.
And knowing that the MS, coupled with a full-time job, would render me less available to them emotionally, even physically, I would be exhausted. So this is a perfect balance for me to work part-time in a professional capacity and to then be a serious mom when I'm home being a serious mom. I don't think I'll ever have another full-time job, 9 to 5, 5 days a week. I don't wish to. This is a better deal.
He used to live there. Where does he live now?
The bottom line here, Claire, is you have to ask yourself one question. What's going to make yourself happy? Right now, you want to be happy? Okay. You're not happy at work. We're a little bit nervous. So if you're not happy at work with this employer, how can we make you happy? It's all about getting to happy, Claire. So let's take control, but let's be proactive. Let me take control of my life so I can be happy, because that's what it's all about.